All right, ladies and gentlemen, Brian Andrus. Thank you.
Sure. Can everyone hear me? I'm not sure if it's all working, so there we go. Okay, yeah, I mentioned I'm Brian Andrus. I work at the Naval Postgraduate School down in Monterey. It's a tough place to work, but someone's got to do it. One of the things I decided to try and do is to show how to just really roll out Lustre in the most basic sense. Let me see if I can figure out how this guy works. There we go. So we're going to go over the Lustre components, the environment that I'm going to be doing it in, which is by no means a production environment, and then what specific software is going to be used. There's a lot of pieces to Lustre, but you actually don't need everything that they have out there just to get up and running. And then I'm going to install the messaging server, the metadata server, and OSS, two OSSs, and get that done. I mean, most basic thing, only two OSTs, just two separate little things, and then how to do the client, and then we'll verify that. Okay, and let's see how this guy works too. That goes what? So we'll be going back and forth a lot apparently. So this will be interesting. And I will make a larger font size on that. So the components to Lustre, we've got, like I'd mentioned, the management server, the management target. See how these animations work. Yay. See, that's what MGS is, just so you can understand some of the acronyms here. And the MGT is the disk inside that system, right? And then we also have the metadata server and the metadata target, which would be the disk inside that system. Those systems can be merged into a single one. And that's a very common thing to do. The management server is what, for all intents and purposes, from a very layman's point, that's the system you connect to share a drive. It's the one you point to. Go over there and mount this type thing. He's the one that gets that name and everything. And then we have the different information that's stored on those things. The stuff about metadata, standard metadata, if anyone's not familiar with it. Data about your data, information about your data, where it is, where it's striped across, things like that. That needs to be maintained somewhere, and that's the metadata server. Okay, and then the bulk of where all your data actually ends up is on the object storage server and the object storage targets. So that's handling each bit of data, well, not literally bit, each piece of data that gets stored from your files and your various things there. And those will be on your OSTs. The thing with OSS is that's the thing that will manage an OST, which is a disk or a stripe on a single system. You can have a lot of those on a single OSS, depending on the specs of your actual hardware. And you end up with a whole lot of OSSs serving a whole lot of OSTs. And then you can see where the striping would come across that. I should have brought my big laser. You could go. What you'd end up wanting to do is using one of the OSTs on the first guy, one of the OSTs on the second, one on the third. That way they're all running in parallel on different systems and things like that. That's when you get into the architecture of how to lay out your Lustre file system. I'm probably going a whole lot faster than I should, but we'll get through here. Okay, so my environment, again, not for production. This is not a production environment. Do not go home and make VMs and have people start using them. I'm using Oracle VirtualBox. I'm just setting up very, very basic virtual systems, 1 CPU, 1 gig of RAM, and I actually bumped it down to an 5 gig primary disk just to save a little bit of space, because I'm doing a basic minimal install of CentOS 6.6. So that's our basic system. So you can boot up minimal. That's all I've done. And then the identified systems we're doing a combined MGS, MDS, and an OSS on that. Don't ever do that in production. You should have your MGS, MDS as a separate system, but just for the demonstration purposes, we're also going to have it serve as an OSS. Okay. The extra disks that we end up on each of those, we've got the MGS OSS system has 1 extra disk to be the MGS MDT. That's your metadata information, your management information. That'll be on that one. And that's a little tiny guy. You see, he's only a gig. Especially for this demonstration, we don't need a whole lot of space. Generally, that one will be a little bit smaller because it's just information about the information, so you don't need to serve out terabytes for that. And then we're setting up 1 OST on that because it's going to be an OSS server as well. And that one's going to be 5 gig. And then the other OSS will just have a single extra disk that's a 5 gig disk. Okay. My IP addresses, I've actually changed those on these a little bit. Instead of 10.1.1.1, it's 192.168.56, and then the last octet's the same. We're going to have the 10s, the 11s. I've set up 2 clients. I've got one of them hard set at 56.50, and then the other one will be 101. You'll see that as we go. Okay. Some of the assumptions that we have, like I said, minimal. You go get the CentOS Red Hat minimal CD, and you just install that little tiny thing. That's all I've done. And then the 2 little things just for the demonstration purposes. I've disabled SE Linux myself. It's such a pain. I don't know, y'all may be able to do it really easily. It's just so wonderful. And then I've turned off the IP tables, so the firewalling. Very easy to get that, to keep that in place and keep Lustre running, but just for this demonstration, we've just disabled it so it's one less variable to deal with. Okay, so the first things you need to do is get some of the software. You need to have E2FS progs, and the URL for that is here. And you can find it on the net pretty easily. And you need these 2 packages. You need the libraries and E2FS progs. You can see that they were some of the ones that were built by Wham Cloud on there. It's WC1, and then I just used wget to get them. This step, all the downloading of the packages I've already done because I wasn't going to trust the internet here. Call me cynical, but I've got them all on each one just sitting in the root's home directory. So hopefully I'm not going over anybody's head for the ones that are here at this level. I know most of you, this is well above. So then the server RPMs. We want to get the specific version of a kernel, because when you go by RPMs, they have been built for a specific kernel. And you have to be aware of what's going on. You can't be updating your kernel because then suddenly your Lustre wouldn't work. So you got to keep an eye on things, keep those matched. They do update those every so often, and it's not a bad thing, especially when the newer version comes out. That's why I grabbed the 2.7, and it's using the 2632.504 8.1 kernel. So we want to get that. Generally, that's not up on with the Lustre ones because that's part of the distro. Yeah, you need to be aware of some of the stuff because when folks like Red Hat cut a new version, like they did the 6.6 between the 6.5 or the 7 to 7.1, they make a new baseline, and so you may have to go back into one of their older repositories to find the proper kernel because it jumps. But that's where you would find it. It's all in their repositories, all in their older updates or in the new burns. So these are the packages that we wanted to get, the kernel and the kernel firmware. There's kernel headers, kernel devel as well, but you don't need those to run this stuff. A few things for dependencies, your libss. Then you've got your Lustre modules, and then the ldiskfs and the mount, because you need a mount command. It's pretty important. Okay, and then they've added the slide here. These are the exact commands that I ran. I installed wget and use that at the command line, and boom, you've got the RPM locally. Okay. I guess this, so you guys can, when they get the slides out and everything, you'll have them right there. And then the client. The neat thing for the client is just the 2 RPMs that you need to be able to mount a Lustre file system. Again, you will need the appropriate kernel to go with that, but from Lustre, these are the only 2 you need. The client modules and the client. Okay, and those are the 2 commands to download those. Like I said, those commands I've already done. It's all set. I've got those. Now I can start actually going to the live system, and then I'll mess with the font to make sure you guys can see it. So what we're going to do is I disable kern and Lustre. The reason I do that, I have Lustre in there. You don't really have to have that part because you should only be downloading the one set. But that's to stop you from accidentally upgrading the kernel, because you want to keep the kernel exactly the same, right? And then we're going to just ensure the right the underscore Lustre version of kernel. That one you do get from the distributions of Lustre. That is for the OSSs and the MGS. Because they need the kernel modules that are built in to be loaded at runtime and at boot time. They can't be dynamically loaded. Okay, and then all the dependencies that are on those. So we're going to load those in and do that. Let me see. And then there's the install command. I actually do that all in one little thing. So let me see if we can get this guy going, and we'll figure out how to get the font so you guys can see it best. And turn that on to help. Say when. Is that legible-ish? All right. How's that? A little better? Yeah. They need to upgrade their things here. Oh, gotta spell things right. So I can see that. I don't know that now it's red, so it's probably even worse. Those are the packages that I've downloaded. That's all I've done right there. Okay, let me actually go back on this guy and make sure. Yeah. So all I'm going to do is install the kernel and everything that I've got with that, and I put all my info right here in this. This little guy, you can see what these are. I just actually highlight, cut and paste this stuff in, right? So there's all my wget. So here is our first one. We're going to disable the updates so it won't automatically update stuff. But it does mean when we do try to install kernels, if we do actually want to, we need to make sure that we enable, we disable. It's a yum thing. You disable the exclude. It's an interesting thing. Alrighty.
Or if you can reverse video.
Is that better? Yeah, I probably should.
Yeah, can you make it white on black?
Let me see how quick and easy I can do that. That's the main thing, right? Display. And I'm not seeing it there. Let's see. Yeah, if I remember right, I can't easily do that. It does it, but yeah, I'll just make it bigger for time.
Can you just lower the
They have their resolution. It's actually as already low as it wants to go for this. That's the odd thing, because it matches what's up on the displays up here. So, okay, so we do that so that we don't get the things going in to automatically download stuff. See, so we've done that, and then we're going to do this little install here, and that one would normally work with if you're connected to the internet and everything like that, and we don't have a really good connection here, so I have to disable some of the repositories that will try to go out to the internet. So do that. It's going to fail miserably. Home button here. So do it like this. Have those. I want to make sure I've got certain things mounted here. Like I say, you'll have to bear with me a little on this. We're jumping around some. That's the OSS. There's the MGS. Make sure I've got. So one of the things I'll do is I'll mount the CD just to get any dependencies that come with the CentOS distribution. So all I've done is mounted the CentOS distribution CD-ROM so that I can use the C6 media repository. That's to let you see what that is. So this lets it get stuff off a CD, and then what we want to do is do like this, so that we can ensure that we're using that repository, and then we do it install /start RPM. Now what I should see here is a little bit of a failure because I didn't disable my disable, and you see that right there. So we wanted to see that. That's because of the disable that I'd done on the right there. Oop, I need to fix that. It's got quotes on it because of the thing. Good thing I noticed.
missing first character. Can you shift the window to the right?
It doesn't actually, but I can detach it and do stuff. Let's see. I can do it like that. Does that help? Oh, on the ends?
To the right. Going to the other right. The other direction.
This way.
That way. There we go.
Okay, so if I put it like right.
No, too far.
More. Wow, that's really off.
Yeah, you're good.
Wow. On my system, that's like a lot. Okay, cool. So let's see. We're going to go. Actually, I'm going to do this quick. I'll put this in later. Make our lives easier. Yep, I got clean. Do a clean. Ah, that's right. Just took some of my things out. So with the firmware, one of the things that I'd like to keep the matching firmware. So I do the, I'll install that by itself first, so that all the requirements and dependencies are met. Because for some reason Yum, even though that matches the requirements and it's in part of this install you're trying to do, it doesn't like it. Kind of a weird thing. Okay. So now it'll install all our little things. And you see a few of the dependencies that are part of the CentOS distribution. If you have internet, that's automatic. You don't have to do all the stuff I've done for mounting the CD. Okay. And actually, while that's doing that, I also need to do that on the OSS. Make sure I've got it mounted as well. So you see I've got all the same things in there. Do that so we can make that capital U. Then we'll be able to see it do stuff. Let's see how he's doing. And it does take a little bit of time because it actually builds a few modules and stuff like this and creates the new initial RAM disk and so forth. So these things do take a little bit of time. Not a ton, but a little bit. So we'll have some delays here. Clean. Repose. That's what I do. I'm spelling something wrong. Oh, spelled it wrong. Still didn't clean it proper, but it's fine. So now he's installing the Lustre modules on the one that's going to be the MGS, MDS. It should. Great. So then we'll also work on the client. doing that, I can go over some of these. At least we'll be able to cover some of this stuff. So apparently half an hour to present and do it might be a little tight. Okay, so what we'll do after, once those are installed, what we're doing here is we'll configure LNET to use TCP only. If you have InfiniBand and stuff like that, you'd add like O2IB and that and stuff. You're going to add LNET because it doesn't automatically add that to check config. If you use check config to manage your services, and then we're going to check config to turn it on. Same thing with Lustre, and then we'd reboot because we've added a new kernel. We need that to be loaded to be able to do any of our mounts and stuff like this. Okay. So I'm watching this guy. I'll keep an eye on him, but meanwhile I'll go ahead and go over some of this. Then what we'll end up doing is doing the makefs Lustre. We give it a file system name, and then you see in this one, we're going to tell it that's MGS and an MDT. It's going to store both of that type of data on there, and it's going to be on, in our case, on this particular one, it would be dev.sdb because the primary drive was also identified as a SCSI one, so I'd have to change that. You do a -- reformat if you're retrying and it already has some Lustre stuff on it. Very handy. It'll give you a warning or a little error and won't format. It'll say, hey, there's already Lustre data in here. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm not going to do it unless you tell me. So you'll do that. Okay. And then on the OSSs, this is the part that you would do multiple times as you grow your Lustre file system and everything. You'll create the OST. You're going to tell it what index it is. You know, is this my zero? It's zero based. My 0th one, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Keep an eye on that. Keep track of all that so that you know which one's where. Especially later on in life, if it becomes possible to replace those. It's easier to take them out, but some people are OCD and they don't like missing numbers. So be aware of that thing. And then you have the -MGS node. That's the IP address of that system that they will all talk to. You know, where's the metadata? Where am I sending it? Is what that amounts to. So you'll do that on your all your OSSs for your OSTs. Each one you do that for an OST now becomes a place where you can store some data. Okay, and then one of the things, this is one of the things that I like lately, is your dev.conf. That's where you can store all the information about all your Lustre pieces. You put in there whether it's what system it's to be mounted on, what the path is for that, and what the label, like in our case, it's data, which Lustre file system label it is, and stuff like this, and the device path. Really nice because a while back I used to have to, just because of the way things were and how I designed things, I had to go manually mount all this stuff to keep track of everything. And this way you don't use FSTab, which is really cool, and it doesn't matter. You tell it where things are, and even for failover and stuff like that, it can mount things properly. So here's how I would end up doing it in mine. So I'm not needing to use like journal path and stuff because I'm not enabling a lot of those features. Yeah, it's finally getting close. But what I'm doing is like Lustre 01 in this is the MGS, and I'm going to mount the MDT on it. I'm going to mount the OST on it, or the first OST 0, and then on Lustre 02, which would be our OSS server, I'm just going to mount one of the OSTs. That same little file, that's the contents right there of the etc LDev, can be on every single OSS and MGS. So you can have that, Puppet can manage things like that for you and stuff like that. And then when the Lustre service starts, it looks through that and it'll say, am I this particular machine? If I am, I need to mount these things. So now on reboots, your Lustre's file systems come up really nice and easy. They can fail over automatically without any issues and stuff like that. These are getting, okay, he finished. I bet I'm not even going to become close. Yep. I'll let you guys see that anyways. So we see here that everything got installed on all that, right? And the next part was to do setting up the IP tables things, just like that. So we've done that. I just did like that. Let's see who. Dang it. Oh. So we want to do that one. Okay. back over here. Yeah. Hey. So we tell it to use the TCP. Oh, that one again. I should be doing this on the other guy anyway. Where's he at? There. He scooted again for some reason. There. So then we add the check config things and reboot, which should be relatively quick. This one's still installing stuff. So we can see it rebooting in this guy. This is just the VM, little tiny thing. Yep, I got to do something on that, forgot. I can't do it like this. Control, have to eject that first. Otherwise VirtualBox gets unhappy. So we see now it's booting the new kernel that we just installed. And you see it has the _Lustre on it. That's the difference for your server systems. So all your OSSs and your MGS would have the _Lustre kernel. Okay. Mm-hmm. I use and for my example and things I've been doing, the host file is sufficient. So they've worked for me for that.
So yes.
Yeah. It's like I accidentally forgot to turn off IP tables. I already have that off. Okay. That means I can go over here again. The MGS. Detach his butt. Okay. Oop. One to reattach. So we see it's running, and now we have like our makefs Lustre command. Which is actually on our other little thing. Fortunately, I've got it here. Hi. So you saw it just made the MDT, the combined MGS MDT. And just like that, I made an OSS, or an OST, right? So I needed to add my stuff to that, which is right here. You'll see that. So there's those. And there they are. Supposed to. And then we have, what is this? Yeah, I'm running out of time. Let me, all right, so that was my ta-da, but that's not where we're at.
How many RAM do you use for your laptop?
Pardon?
How many?
It's got 8 gig. So 8 gigabytes of RAM. So, and I'm only using 1 gig per OSS or per VM. So there's only the 4. So I wouldn't use things like that. I mean, 1 gig is not enough for a lot of things. But I'm doing such tiny little things, we're not going to actually be using it to do stuff. But I'm running out of time on this, unfortunately. So I'll go over real quick with this and take some quick questions. You installed the client package, same deal. You had to install the kernel, only this time without the _Lustre, the one you'll get from the repo. You install the modules. Those actually take a bit of time too, because it uses DKMS to build them. And well, it doesn't use DKMS, but it has to build the modules and get them all inserted and everything. But it does take a little bit of time. The 2 simple commands, yum install, those 2. You'd have to do them together because they are dependent. So it'd be like that. And then in your FS tab, all you have to do is the system that's your MGS, and then whatever your transport is, in our case TCP, colon, and then slash the name of your file system and where you want to mount it. There should be a space after that big A on that. And I like to name my Lustre file systems all uppercase. It just so I know when I'm looking at stuff and doing mount commands and FS tabs, I know that that's what's going on with some of those things. And again, with the client, you have to reboot, so it loads the new kernel. And once you've done that, it'll load it, and then it'll try and mount that. I do the _netdev so that it knows that this is a network-based file system, and if the network's not fully up yet, don't bother trying to mount it, otherwise it sits and waits and does stuff, takes forever. So that's what those do. I guess, wait, I'm on the wrong. Okay, and then quick checks, you check to see that /data was mounted, you copy some data. I could log in a second. These were the things that I would have done, but apparently I'm way over time. Sorry. So, any quick questions, or you can grab me.
If you got questions for Brian, swarm him.
Yes.
We're at a break right now.
I'll be in the back corner.
Right on. So if you've got questions, ask Brian. If you're experienced, well-seasoned, want to get involved, you can pester the people that are asking him questions, maybe give those people some advice. I heard somebody say, man, it takes a whole lot longer to format on a petabyte file system.
Oh, yes.
So it's crucial data like that you old hands might want to hand new people that are wading into the water. Brian, thanks so much for giving this a shot.
Sure. We tried.